What is up, all you GBA type people? This is Tom, and we're here with your pick and crew, week 6. With me as always.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's McCaddy, and we've got a much cleaner week from last week compared to the one before. The last one was just absolutely monstrous. So, looking back on week 5, we've got some really solid, sort of good choices by the analysts, and so a couple of pips in there, but we'll be talking about those. So, obviously, both Miguel and also George, we all decided to put our choices on them, and it pulled out. They did really well and managed to secure the win on that one. Blue decided to go for the underdog with Tup, and unfortunately that did not pay off, so he's slightly hampering his score a little bit more. Bit unfortunate on that part. Nick with his sixth sense again. He's some sort of magician, I'm sure. Calling the fact, and also you. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry, but mainly Nick for with his magical sixth sense of voting for the underdog just at the right time, predicting Gio to beat Lars in the last match. I must admit I did not see that coming at all. And then Gubbs won as well, all completely wrong. We doubted Gubbs, but it may be that Gubbs is shaking off the rust right now, and all of our bets on him are going to be a little bit more shaky, but we're just going to have to see about it.
I think I'm kind of agreeing with Nick when he did speak about, how hot Gio has been and how some of us are kind of sleeping on him. I think Gio's getting hot at the right time. I think it's like a mid-season push of sorts, because if you look at the differential for that specific division, I believe it's the Kanto Blue division, and when you look at everyone, that division is so tightly locked up. I see Gio potentially being the one to, make a foothold and then kind of rise above the rest. Nick probably saw that before I did, and obviously that was the case. But on the same token, it's nice to see Gio finally develop into a really solid competitor.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with that. And seeing him develop and sort of some of the sets he's pulling out as well have been really good to see. And I wouldn't be surprised to see his play from last week with the special NT against Shady becoming the play of the season. But we'll just have to see. I know Blue has got some sort of voting system going, so we'll just have to see which one ends up being the play. There's plenty more weeks for wacky stuff to come out, but yeah, we'll just have to see. And then finally wrapping up, Believe in Steve unfortunately was not a thing this week, and Kelly ended up losing the lock of the week on that one, bringing him down to 4-1. So he's ended up losing his perfect score of lock of the week as well, which is very unfortunate. And then, oh, is there something you want to add?
No. You say that so what's the word? It's not like you're confident about it, but you're just so, now I'm ahead of everybody.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's good to be in a strong position, both on lock of the weeks and also overall. Not to rub it in, but
I'm gonna catch you. Just watch. I'm gonna catch you.
Yeah. That's what they all say.
Okay. Anyway, to wrap up the totals that we have, you could see on the screen in front of you. Last week, it looks like me, party, woo! Did the best in terms of the picks, 7-1, 6-2 for 4 of the competitors, Burke, Baby Nick, you and Hank, 5-3 for Kelly, and 4-4 for Blue. Still kind of caboosing along there.
Yeah, he needs to work with Nick. he's betting on the underdogs. He needs Nick's sixth sense, and if he worked with Nick, he might have a good chance, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, but wait for the week where the underdog picks are the majority, winners, obviously.
Oh, definitely, yeah. He may end up pulling it back.
Lock of the weeks, you're still perfect. 4-1 for Baby Nick, and for Kelly, and for Hank, and 3-2 for the rest of us. Just gonna end that one off. Finally, overalls, you 28-12, me 26-14, along with Burke. 25-15 for Kelly, Baby Nick, and Hank, and finally 18-22 for Blue. Nice to see Baby Nick in the mix there. He went from catching up to right around where Blue was in about week 2. Now he's up with basically almost tied for second in terms of the overall picks to date.
Yeah, he does definitely seem to be sneaking up on us. So yeah, he might end up being some big competition. We've got plenty of weeks left to go, and if he's continuing at a rate like that, he may end up pulling ahead. But we'll just have to see.
So moving on from there, we'll go into this week's picks. Leading off, we have John vs. Lars, and it looks like no. it looks like everyone is, for the most part, picking John, with Kelly, Baby Nick, and Blue picking Lars. Now, what do you think about that? Why are people kind of a little bit less on Lars as compared to the first few weeks?
I would definitely say John has really, really pulled through, especially in terms of when you look back at the pick'ems. I think the last 2 weeks, if I remember rightly, he has been in the minority of picks, and he's ended up pulling through. So I think people are getting much more confidence in picking John, and that's mainly why I'm picking him for this one. As I believe in John. I think he can pull through. I've relied on him so far, and he's been pulling up, bringing in the goods. So that's kind of what I'm feeling. I imagine also, having Lars is currently at a slightly lower score to John as well, and maybe that's sort of a little bit of a reflection on it as well.
From there, we have Fizzy versus Geo, with me and Baby Nick, surprise, surprise, picking Geo. And it seems that both of us have our locks of the week, with everyone else picking the Atlanta Halucha. Now, I'm going to get into character real quick because Baby Nick has a very interesting dialogue mapped out for why he's picking Geo. So, what's that sound, ladies and gentlemen? What is that? That's right. That's the alarm clock letting you all know that you've been sleeping on Geo. Geo is capable of winning big games when it counts. And he's going to take it one step further, saying he is 100% confident on Geo this week. Baby Nick's bold prediction was that Geo goes 10-2 by the end of the regular season. Now, in order for that to actually happen, Geo needs to win out. And apparently Nick is fully confident that that's going to happen. And he thinks that Geo's bulk, with his offensive powerhouses in Entei and Mega Pinsir, will outlast and outpower Fizz's bulky team. And now my lock of the week says ditto to what Nick says. Just that's it.
No, that's fair enough. It was a really, 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 really tricky choice for this one. I spent a lot of time thinking about this one, and like Geo is definitely the dark horse at the minute, and I feel Fizz has been playing so well, and he knows Geo's a massive threat, and a threat that he cannot sleep on. And I think for that reason, Fizz is going to be putting in a ton of time on prep, and I think, personally, the safest bet is Fizz, which is why I decided Fizz was the way to go for this one. Though, considering Nick's picked the underdog again, I wouldn't be surprised to be wrong on this one. But we'll just have to see.
Moving on from there, we have Shady versus Tup. And again, this is kind of the case of the John versus Lars match. It seems that the analysts are a little more split in terms of who they want to be a favorite of. Because if you look at earlier in the season, Shady was the clear favorite. But then you now have Tup, who's playing much better, and Shady's kind of slipping. He's now 2-3, if I recall. What do you think?
I decided to go for Shady with this one. I think it's really, really, really tricky for this one. This is also a very hard one, but I think after the 2 losses, Shady is definitely going to be out for blood this game, and he does not want to be stuck in a losing streak or anything like that. You did see him end up with a losing streak in the UCL and able to pull it back and bring that back to a winning streak. So this may be the week. In my gut feeling, this is the week he's going to pull it back and potentially start a brand new win streak. But that's just my gut feeling. So it's mainly a gut feeling for Shady. And I think he's got ways to handle Tup, especially things like Samrush Excadrill. Also, how I personally think Tup slightly misplayed a little bit with the Excadrill in the last game. I think for Tup to be able to actually pull off a Excadrill sweep for this one, he's going to have to be on point with predictions and also the way that he plays it and tries to keep the sand up.
I think if anything on Tup's team is going to be a major player, it's going to be, like you said, the Excadrill. But I can also see D-Dance Tyranitar maybe doing a lot of work this week. I don't know, something about maybe Shady's prep, or the fact that, I don't know, maybe catch him off guard. Who knows? But it seems very split amongst the analysts, so we'll see who wins. You and I are both on the Mankeys, so maybe Shady turns it around, or maybe Tup just continues to excel. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll just have to see.
We have the next 4 matches where there's pretty much no deviation, all set to one team. So this is an all or nothing type thing. Crimson versus Dan. We're all on Dan. What do you think?
So this is my lock of the week for this one. I think, personally, it's the safest lock of the week. Dan's been performing very, very well so far, and especially when he had some very scary matchups, last week with Tup's Excadrill. I think he played that very well. He was a little bit reckless, but I think he's going to learn from that mistake and maybe pull it back in a bit and just make sure that he doesn't sort of overreach too early on in the game. And comparing him to Crimson, I think personally he performs better and also has been team building better this season. So this is why I personally think it's by far the safest game to bet on.
I think Burke shares your sentiment because he pretty much had the exact same thing. Dan's been planning very well this season, last season, the UCL, what have you. And he says unless Crimson comes up with something surprising that's still also effective, Dan's going to run through him like a hot knife through butter. So I can see that happening. I think that with citing the example of how much foresight he had against Tufts' team last week, where he knew about the Endeavor lead Archie upset. He knew about, Cobra Berry or HP flying on Jellison and having Cobra Berry, which inadvertently was probably for Thundurus. Or just all those things considered, I can see, him cutting through Crimson if Crimson just is very lackadaisical or doesn't do enough or is just not impressive. But that's pretty much the case on that one. Moving on from there, we have Gubs versus George. And unfortunately, we're all on George, and that doesn't seem like the worst thing. George has been, for lack of better words, on fire. He's just, because he's Arcaniners, get it? Because fire Pokemon, Fire Dog, right? I know. Oh. So George has just been awesome. His playing, his prep, his even just the way that he's, breaking down the matches and his narrations are awesome.
Yeah, he's been performing absolutely fantastically. I think Gubs pulling back the win last week was a surprise, but I think he's still got to prove that he has shaken off that rust. I think it's starting to come off, but as I said, he still needs to prove to me that he is back in the game before I'm willing to bet on him, especially with how amazingly George has been playing so far. Just absolutely fantastic. Considering the draft and everything like that, he's really, really been pulling through and is definitely going to be one of the big contenders, I think, later on.
And Blue's Lock of the Week is, in fact, on George, saying that essentially what I just said. George has been hot, Gubs has been, not impressive, and, has got a fair share, 2 wins, but they haven't been the most impressive. George has been exceptional, and he'll continue to do so. From there, we have everyone on the Boston Red Sox, with Hank having him as his Lock of the Week. I don't know. I think this match is going to be closer than what it looks like on paper. I think that maybe with Nick losing these past 2 weeks, and then with Mulvone maybe kind of diversifying. We saw him actually use different Mons this week in terms of Fortress and Gastrodon.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he did go up against Miguel, but on the same token, maybe he can bring out what we saw last season with how just good and how much pressure he could apply against his opponent that we're not seeing this season.
Yeah, definitely.
Hank just says Nick is on a 2-game slide, and I think he's going to be hungry and has the bulk to take on Mulvone's offense. Now, we've heard that song and dance before. Mulvone has yet to prove that he can hang with a projected playoff team, but at this point, Nick is kind of sliding out of projected playoff positioning. I think he's kind of a runner-up for a wild card spot, not necessarily commanding his own fate here, even though it is, upcoming week 6.
Yeah, these weeks are definitely the key ones where you start to sort of separate people out, and I think Nick almost needs to have a win this week, otherwise he's going to be so far behind some of the leaders. So I think he's going to really get his prep on point and try and make sure he gets a win for this one. And as Hank said, he thinks the Bolt can handle it. I'm pretty confident in that as well, but there is always that risk when you're trying to act reactively rather than sort of more offensively that something can go wrong. So we're just going to have to see with this one. But personally, I think Nick does have this one.
Moving on from there, we just have a very simple choice here. Everyone is picking the Real Maril. No locks of the week on this one. Just it seems that as well as Nips has been doing, Miguel is just that much better, right?
Yeah, that's basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glad we can sort that one up real quick. Let's talk about Stephen Hayden.
Oh, this one's a tricky one. Really, really tricky. There's a lot of Believe in Steve this week, I can see. I'm still not on the I Believe in Steve's train, but I think it's coming to the point now where Hayden's starting to realise he needs to start bringing not necessarily more wacky stuff, but actually, some less standard sets. And I think this is going to be the start of the turning point where he's going to start to adapt to League format and start to pull it back. At least I hope, because this is the time where he really needs to try and start pulling some wins back to actually get him into the playoffs position. Yeah, I think overall, I think his draft has got it over Steve's. That's just my personal opinion, and that's why I've decided that he's going to be my pick for this week.
I'm going to agree with that, and the reason I say so is because there's something about Hayden. When you watch his video back against George, at the end he sounded disparaged, but on the same token, I've heard in the comment section, I've just heard in general that he wants to play better. He wants to perform better for not only his fans but for himself, show that he can actually compete. And with that being said, as much as Steve wants to win, like you said, I think he does have the better draft, and I think that he'll pull this one through. As much as Steve wants to win, I think Hayden can turn it around a little easier, and with his draft, with his walls, his power, what have you, he'll come through with the win. Kelly is locked again on Steve. Gotta go, all or nothing here. Combine Mega Gardevoir does a lot to his team. He only has one switch in the form of Porygon 2, but I'm sure he can innovate other walls such as Clefable, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely.
Even after a Combine, Porygon 2 gets two-shotted by a Focus Blast. He #believes in Steve, and Steve will one day get the win, in which case then he'll hold it above all of our heads. But, that also comes at the cost of, if you're wrong, then we get to say what is wrong with you.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off, but we'll just have to see. It may pay off, but it probably won't.
All right, so between you and I, here's our final talking point, our chatter point. Who gets their first win, Steve or Crimson? And how soon?
It's really, really tricky. I think overall, I would say I'm leaning towards Steve on this one. I think Steve seems to really, really want the win, and he's been really innovative, and while sometimes he's sort of, brought slightly iffy sets, I think he's bringing the right Pokemon a lot of the time, whereas I feel sometimes Crimson, there's a Pokemon you'll see and it has a fantastic matchup, and he sometimes doesn't end up bringing it. And I think, there's obviously he may end up being able to work on that, but I think overall, I think Steve is more likely to get the win on this one. But that's just my personal opinion.
I can agree with that. I think a lot of people in the comments, amongst the analysts, I think they're more buying into what Steve is trying to do than what they're seeing in Crimson. I believe that, like you said, Steve is bringing the right sets. He's bringing, even if he is taking risks, they're necessary, and it's almost to the point where if they do work out, it's like, wow, that's what we want to see. That's what we expect out of Steve, and that right there, just with that innovation, that focus, that drive, I think that's what's going to get him the first win. And if it's not this week, I can see it in next week, regardless of his opponent. I think it's just the want and the drive and the focus, and it's there.
Yeah,
Steve
definitely
is going to get it, I think. So with that being said, that's your picking crew. Now, we extend that question back to you guys in the comments. Who do you think gets the first win, Steve or Crimson? We're at the halfway point, and it's interesting to see what you guys think. Who are you believing in more and why? Let us know. As well as put your rankings down there. Every week we like to see it. I personally look through them and see how you guys match up. Makati, you want to, set them off?
Yeah, hope you guys enjoy the week, and hopefully you enjoy the battles tomorrow as much as we do. See you guys later.
See you on Sunday.